It's day 107 of 118 days of the Tudors, and today we're looking at 1591. And something a little bit different today. We're going to spend a year with Elizabeth, and I'm just going to give you a little event of something that happened each month in that year, and we can get a nice picture of what sort of drama is going on in the Elizabethan court and also when she's out and about. So let's start with January. In January, and I just want to get these names right, so excuse me reading my notes. John Burke, who's the second Baron of Cannell, who's a young Irish lord, had gone to fight a duel with Captain Arthur Cosby. Now, apparently this is because the young Irish lord has pulled Cosby's nose. Now, I thought there must be some sort of meaning that I don't understand about this, that maybe to pull someone's nose means something else. It seems to literally mean he's gone and pulled his nose in some sort of jest or insulting way. So Cosby has insisted that they're going to have a duel. However, while Burke, the young Irish lord, is getting ready for the duel, Cosby sneaks up and stabs him to death. So Cosby, in turn, is sentenced to death. So they both ended up dead. And the printers refer to it as a tragical murder. So, starting off the year in high drama, then let's move to February. The Queen is moving around a lot in this year. So, on the 11th of February, she leaves Richmond for Greenwich Palace. And she arrives for the Shrovetide celebration. So, if you think, so that's the period just before Pancake Day. So Shrove Tuesday and then the Sunday before. Basically, she's got a big group of people that have to get all her stuff and move it from one palace to the next. So she's got the keeper of the standing wardrobe, 2 men and 8 labourers were required to take down, air, shake, carry, relay and rehang all of the hangings and the wardrobe stuff, it says, ready for her at Greenwich. And then you've got all the bells ringing as she arrives. I shouldn't laugh, these are people's lives. In March, Edward Harlow stole 12 chickens and he pretended they were for the Queen, and he was sentenced to death. It's quite funny. Oh, it's not funny actually at all, but when we've talked about, you know, that if you've watched all these videos, we had that young guy who was shooting off his gun and almost killed the Queen, and he was let off, and then you've got a guy stealing some chickens and I shouldn't laugh, sentenced to death. So it's a dangerous place, Tudor England. Okay, April, the Earl of Essex. This is Robert Devereux. This is kind of her new favourite blokey since, although she does like Christopher Hatton as well. One of her favourites now that Leicester or Dudley has died, so he's his stepson. So Robert Devereux and Henry Fitzgerald, the Earl of Kildare, they've had an argument so near the Majesty's person. So they've been arguing way too close to Elizabeth. Basically, they've been using words that were unfit to be used in that place. It sounds like they've been using quite foul language near the Queen. So they've been put in kind of a bond, in an agreement that they cannot challenge, provoke or assault each other, or they'll end up having to pay £10,000, which is a lot of money in Tudor days. Well, it's a lot of money now, but you know. So yeah, no kicking off around. It's like the mum analogy again, isn't it? Like, stop, mum's had enough of your fighting, stop it. Okay, and then in May, Elizabeth has gone to stay with Cecil, and there's some suggestion that this is because he's going through quite a lot of grief. So the wife of his grandson has just died, but within the last sort of 2 or 3 years, he's also lost his mother, his wife and his daughter. So this is kind of like a 4th knock for him. So she's gone to stay with him for 6 days. But this is the bit that I find interesting. 3 horses had to be hired to bring up all her gold plates and cups to have with her while she was staying there. Now, in June, we see a little glimpse of Henry in her here. If you aren't aware, Henry loved archery and he was really keen that everybody do it. And Elizabeth seems to have carried on this interest, if not for herself, but for her people. So she bans card games and dice and bowling, and says that everybody should be taking up archery instead. In July, we see a man called William Hackett appear in London, and he has decided that he is St. John the Baptist reincarnate, and he's Christ's representative on earth, and he manages to sort of get a couple of friends to believe him and join along with him as his prophets, and he very publicly destroys Elizabeth's coat of arms and stabs her portrait through the heart, and he announces that Elizabeth should be off the throne, and that the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain should be consigned to hell. He was executed by the end of the month. Now the Queen is on progress at the moment, so in August she goes to the house of Viscount Anthony Browne and his wife. Now these are staunch Catholics. They even have a priest hide, which we talked about before, in their home, which I just think, imagine if you were a priest hiding at that point and the Queen's coming. Must have been terrifying. But what I like about this visit is she was greeted by really loud music and a very loud speech by somebody who greeted her in armour. And I think the storyteller part of my brain is sort of wondering if maybe there was some priests hiding in the house and the loud music was kind of a signal to them to hide and be quiet. But that's purely the fiction of my brain. There's no fact in that bit. Now, in September, we see Elizabeth do something on progress, which is maybe quite familiar. Sounds like something royals today might do. So she goes to Southampton to visit some refugees that she's allowed to live there since 1567. They've been there, for over 20 years at this point. She pops down to see how they're doing, which I think is quite nice. And they put on a whole thing for her. They're still so grateful that she's, allowed them to live there. And they thank her, and she says that she's sure that their prayers have, served her too, have helped keep her, alive. It then goes on to list the huge expense it's cost Southampton to have her down there, drummers and trumpeters. Is trumpeter a word? People playing trumpets, all sorts of stuff that had to be paid for when the Queen arrived. October, we have a bit of court scandal. So we have Catherine Lee, a maid of honour, gives birth at court unmarried. The father is Sir Francis Darcy. They were both committed to the Tower. Now the daughter, the baby, sadly dies the next year, but the two do go on to marry the following year, and on the marriage register they're both noted down as prisoners. So remember, if you were in that court, you can't be getting married without Elizabeth's permission, never mind having illegitimate children. So I can't imagine Elizabeth was very pleased. In November, a man called John Macy was heard to say, "There would never be a merry world before there were a new alteration, and by God's wound the Queen is a whore." Believe it or not, he doesn't get executed, but he does get put in the pillory and well whipped. And just a quick reminder, this is a pillory, these are stocks. Always confused. And then lastly, in December, we just see loads of plays at court. It's Christmas time. But something slightly more poignant that I wanted to put in. So Christopher Hatton, who had been one of her favourites, had actually died in the November of this year. But in December, it records that she spent 4 days at his bedside when he was dying. And it had been said that she loved him more than any man in the land. So she's not long lost Leicester, Dudley, and she's lost someone else who she was quite keen on, Christopher Hatton. So that's a year with Elizabeth. She was busy. I mean, she had a lot of dinners. It sounds quite nice to me, being carried place to place to all these different dinners. And I love that they had to send out for all her gold plates. Imagine turning up at a dinner party and bringing your own plates. Brilliant. I love it. So that's a year with Elizabeth. So I will see you tomorrow for 1593. See you then. Bye.